and Peter and Malcolm are going to take us through the constitutional session. So over to you.
Yeah, constitutional. It sounds like an exercise part of the day, doesn't it? So as I was saying, I've sent out notification that we will be holding an EGM on the 15th of December with 3 topics. And obviously this comes under the emergency legislation, which was extended by the government to allow us to hold such EGMs virtually. Otherwise, by our articles, we'd have to have 10 people in the room. And we felt that really was not warranted under the current circumstances. We do want to make sure that we approve the service fees that Jen's already presented. That's one of the key topics we want to have a vote on. Secondly, we want to make sure that we have a resolution to amend the articles to allow us to hold future EGMs in the future if further conditions such as this should arise. Obviously, our preference, if we can, is to hold them in person. And thirdly, to vote on the director's remuneration. So those will be the 3 elements that will go into the EGM on the 15th of December. But now I'll turn it over to Malcolm to give us a view on how we've got here and what the government legislation involves for these EGMs.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Peter. Okay, so this is really just a quick recap of how the virtual GM scheme is being presented and how it's intended to work. Firstly, as we'd said before, we conducted the AGM in May on Zoom out of necessity. The lockdown made it impossible to hold a meeting in person. Our articles say that you have to have 10 people personally present. 10 people, getting 10 people in the same location was neither legal nor safe, and having a GM was essential to adopt accounts and to hold a board election. It's not clear in our articles whether virtual general meetings are legally valid. It's about the personally present requirement, but we think that that probably means that they have to be in the same physical location. We're far from the only company that's challenged by this. And so the government passed some temporary legislation that Peter referred to as a one-off law to legalise general meetings as happening virtually, even if the articles say otherwise. And that was just for the period between March and September. And then they extended that out to December when it became clear that we were going to go back into a stricter environment again. So we're bringing forward an articles amendment so that we can continue to hold general meetings virtually after December when the legislation expires. And the main points of that are that they will be the same, have the same powers. They will be ordinary general meetings, that the board calls it as a virtual general meeting, and that goes out on the calling notice. We're raising the quorum for all general meetings, not just virtual ones, from 10 members to 25 members, because that's essentially a bit of extra protection for members, and we get a good enough turnout that we can do that. So we think that's the right thing to do. We're also writing in there that LINX must provide a facility for virtual GM attendees to interact and discuss things amongst themselves, not only through the chair. So it can't be done just as a broadcast webinar with no chat facility, because it's important that members should be able to discuss the matters with each other. Obviously, any decisions in the meeting go through the chair. And this I have presented on this before, and that's still largely unchanged. What we have, however, found in consulting with our lawyers is that the Companies Act doesn't actually allow, or at least depending on the legal interpretation, may not allow wholly virtual meetings to happen, because it just, it was the way, again, it's a question of interpretation, but the lawyers sort of majority view is that wholly virtual meetings can't happen at the moment. So they came up with us, our lawyers came up with a workaround for us that said that actually to satisfy the Companies Act, what you can do is you can have 2 people representing members meeting in person, and then have the rest of the meeting happening entirely by Zoom. And you can set your own quorum for a higher number of people, but because that's not the Companies Act, they can meet by Zoom. Yeah. So that's essentially how we would expect that to work, and we would have 2 people in a room, and then the rest, and then have at least 23 more members represented in the meeting, and the meeting goes ahead that way. If the law is changed to update it to allow for purely virtual meetings, as may well happen as a result of the new normal, then the way that we've written the articles is so that you will no longer have to have those 2 people in one room. That's a workaround. Okay, so anyway, we've member consultation. Well, originally we announced this at LINX Live in September, published a proposed text that's available on the website. Perhaps more importantly, a FAQ on the website. I'd encourage you to read the FAQ because the actual proposed text of the article is really quite complex legally, so the FAQ you may find easier to read. That was announced on membership and with a direct link, so you can follow it from there, and will be available in a few minutes for questions in the breakout group. There's one further thing that I would add though, and that is that in the last few minutes, I've been passed a message from a member that said it would have been helpful to have a change as a result of this. So what I'm proposing, I'm getting crash reports from Zoom. What I am proposing, I'm sorry, but Zoom is just sending me crash reports now. I'm not sure why that's happening. Is that, right, here we are. So here's the diff. Essentially what we're adding is 2 entirely new articles. So there would be no diff to see.
And he's gone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Ah, you're back. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I was just getting a endless series of crash reports from Zoom there. I don't know why. I guess it's the new update that we had just the other day. Anyway, what I was saying when I left was that a member had asked for a diff of the difference, to show the difference between the existing articles and what they are proposed to be. Actually, what we're adding is 2 entirely new articles, so there wouldn't be anything to see in the diff, except for the change to the existing article that deals with the quorum, raising the quorum from 10 to 25. So I'm now going to attempt to screen share the picture showing the diff of that article on its own. And hopefully you can see that on the screen now.
Yes, we can see it.
And as you can see there, what's happened is that we have simply removed the 10 members off the end of the existing text, and then added on 25 members plus all the other text that refers to the stuff about attending virtually and so forth, and making sure that the virtual general meetings clauses override this clause, and that the and that you can incorporating the clause that makes clear that you can attend a LINX meeting virtually, even if it's not a virtual general meeting, if we provide so, and that's entirely a valid way of attending as a general meeting participant. Okay, so I hope that makes it clearer, and that and then everyone can see that. I will, as I say, I was only asked to do this as a member message a few minutes ago, but I'll make sure that this diff image is added up to the website in the member consultations area as well, as soon as essentially right away, sometime later today or first thing tomorrow.